Let's do this. We're actually going to be on time.
Sounds good.
Hello, everybody. This is Rob from Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies. Today, on a special show, a special night. Again, refer to my Twitter feed regarding technical difficulties. Mistakes were made. It's not my fault. These are the key things you need to remember. I was thwarted by technology. It's the tool's fault, not mine. Anyway, folks, we've got a great night for you. A 1 hour special show. We're going to be taking a look at the Netflix original Don't Look Up. Let me see if I can't pull up the whole shtick on it. Yes. What I like to think of, it came out last month, was in theaters briefly, then went to Netflix. Kind of Netflix's bummer Christmas present for it all. This dark comedy uh, from Netflix. Here's the log line or the log paragraph. Uh, Astronomy grad student Kate Dibiasky and her professor Dr. Randall Mindy, played by Jennifer Lawrence and Leonardo DiCaprio, respectively, make an astounding discovery of a comet orbiting within the solar system. The problem? The problem, you'd think, is it's on a direct collision course with Earth. Of course, the actual problem is nobody seems to care. Turns out warning humanity about a planet killer the size of Mount Everest is an inconvenient fact to navigate. Ooh, I think there's a reference in there. Anyway, this film was directed by Adam McKay of The Big Short fame, written by him from a story created by Adam McKay and the journalist and screenwriter David Sirota. Stars, and oh my goodness, the names. Okay, stars, of course, Jennifer Lawrence, Leonardo DiCaprio, Rob Morgan, Jonah Hill, Kate Blanchett, Tyler Perry, and Meryl Streep. But it also stars, in a great turn, Mark Rylance, Ron Perlman, Timothy Chalamet, Ariana Grande, Scott Mescudi, aka Kid Cudi, and Himish Patel, Melanie Linsky, Michael Chiklis, and Tomer Sisley. Uh, yeah, there's the basics of the flick. Now let's talk about the social nutrition checklist. Oh, looks like I'm giving it all away there. All right. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about the reframe stamp. Yeah, you know what? This doesn't qualify. Was it a union made film? Yes, it was. Um, would it qualify for the Bechdel test? You know what? Not that I could tell. And then, last but certainly not least, could we call this a class conscious film? You know what? I'm going to say no. Although it certainly is making a political statement, it's not a class one, or not a class conscious one. So that gives us a final score of 25%. Now, with that out of the way, with that done, I think it is time to bring on my wonderful co-host, Mr. Jim Chaboyko. How are you doing, my friend?
That's a good sign. Yeah, everything sky is clear.
uh,
Yeah. I keep
uh,
looking though.
excellent. Keep looking up. Keep your chin up. Keep looking
De-
up.
Definitely.
Before we get into the quick review, Jim, uh, let's take a quick look at the chat. See who, if anyone, we have in our wonderful
Oh
chat.
yeah,
Uh, oh my goodness, we've got a few folks. Thank you
we
all
do.
so much for your faith in us that we would actually finally get our you know what together. Uh, bear with me while I. Okay, so it looks like let's first of all welcome our man, our good friend from British Columbia. Mr. Walt, Mr. Vlad 65. Good to see you.
Hey, Walt. Hey,
And
Vlad.
then, you know what? Another great supporter of the channel, our man in Chennai, Mr. Shashank Vachari.
Yes. Hello, Shashank.
And then, of
Good to see you.
course, we've got. Oh yeah, we just keep moving around the world.
Oh my
But back
God.
here, we got Richard L. And I'm assuming Katie Fowler is not too far. Good to see you guys.
Representing 204.
And then,
Oh,
of
yeah. Sorry, I'm
course,
not doing that.
our man in Kuwait, Ahmed, Mr. Jelly Duck 100. Great seeing you here. All right. Well, we've got a full chat, and
Yeah. It's
this
awesome.
movie, I suspect, Jim, will generate some chatter.
Yes. Yes.
So why don't we? Yeah, maybe why don't we get into the quick review, if that
Sure.
is that's cool with you? And why don't you start us off, Jim?
Okay. Some quick notes I took down here. Aside from just the movie itself, aside from any of the criticism or praise that it's gotten, I think it does pretty well in as much as you can successfully capture the nuttiness of the world these days. This is a world in which politicians, are wanting educators to give the Nazi point of view. We have a congressman who's advocating to outlaw the turn indicator down south. So, in this kind of day and age, how can you possibly uh, be satirical about anything? But I think it does a fairly good job. A little bit of a scattershot approach, kind of broad, but if you look at some of the great, more popular satires of the past, they're pretty broad themselves. The cast was kind of amazing. In this case, you had the cool kids as the exasperated ones. So you had Leo as the nervous guy, and man,
Yeah.
and I thought he did a good job portraying a guy on the verge of a heart attack the entire
So
movie.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you could just like he looked almost not bloated, but it looked like he sort of, you know, just his neck and like he was tense and
Unhealthily puffy.
yes, yeah, that's sort of a better thank you wording for it. And even Jennifer Lawrence, she has sort of a role that I think Tom Hanks always did really well, was the exasperated guy. And I think she sort of is the exasperated one here, also on the verge of losing it often. And I thought she did well with that. Like just if you're going to put the hood on me, fuck off. And just that sort of like, I really got behind her character fairly easily. Great cast. Rob Morgan is Oglethorpe. Mark Rylance is the creepy tech dude. They were all great. A couple things. I'm not sure the Ariana Grande storyline landed as Riley Bina. Not sure it landed as well as it could have. And I didn't really buy the Bree Dr. Mindy romance either. But I mean, those are little things. The sense of time was a little odd. So all of a sudden, it seemed we were sort of close to the end of the movie. I don't want to give anything away because we're not in the spoiler zone yet. But it had a good look. It had a nice sense of graphic design, nice score, and it had, for something about the end of the world, it had a great energy to it. I thought right from the start, which is sort of counterintuitive maybe, but yeah, I thought it was sort of well done. Maybe a little bit all over the place, but what the heck? I had a good time watching it, and it's not a short movie either. So that's my quick review. How about you?
You know what, Jim? For myself, I found it. I'm almost gonna do like the anti my the anti some of the negative reviews I've seen. It's like I don't know what movie they're watching. Back to something you said, and we had mentioned when we chatted the other night. You and a friend of mine and I were talking about this film the other day, and both it's like you cannot be subtle with satire unless it's almost like a filmmaker in joke. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like if you are not if you're not hitting it pretty hard, you run the risk of either people just totally missing it and thinking it's just a bad movie, I'm thinking of Starship Troopers. I saw it as a kid, and I remember I saw it as a kid, and I really enjoyed the book. And great cadet novel, I believe that's what
Mhm.
Heinlein called them. Uh, and I think, Jim, this, yeah, when was it Frankenheimer? Who is it? Verhoeven did Starship
Yes,
Troopers.
Paul Verhoeven. Yeah.
Yeah, he was not obvious enough. And then, as you mentioned the other day, you look at Doctor
I think it was Dr.
Strangelove.
Strangelove we were talking
Like,
about.
yeah,
Yeah.
you hit it right. It's like, boy, that was pretty on the nose as well. Uh, I don't want to get too much into like the politics of the piece, but I think it's one of those things where it's like one of the critics I saw, a critic I respect, she was talking about as well. It's not the people you want to convince aren't going to watch it. And I'm like, the satire is not meant to convince. I think it's as much about comforting and about saying to people, you're not crazy. This is nuts,
Yeah.
and these people are ridiculous. And I think you've got to hit it hard, and you got to be broad, because the risk you have, like in a lot of anti-war movies, and that is that the other side kind of either doesn't get it, or you do such a good job in your visuals and that they take it on as it becomes part of their own mythology, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, and you know what? Even some of the again, some of the critics are like, "Well, there was no character growth. They didn't have enough time to." And it's like it's much like a couple of other McKay's films, and thinking about The Big Short. It's like there's no character growth there. That isn't what it's about. It's a whole bunch of little episodes. It's
Mhm.
yeah, like I mean, you can have this big a cast because it's really seeing them together. Everyone's pretty much the same. Yeah, the nebbishy professor, gets hit on by the popular girl and kind of falls apart for a while, but no one really changes. They don't have arcs because that's not the point of this film.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Mhm.
for myself, I laughed. The only thing, and I'll ask the question, don't need to answer. It's a bug in everybody's ear. I'm wondering if some of the reason it works for you and I as Canadians, and it may not work for others, especially some of our American friends or the American audience. Certainly, the critics I'm referring to are American. It's like this is one of the things. It's not making. It may be making fun of a certain element within American culture, but it's also really kind of making fun of the United States in this
Mhm.
very our current time frame, because it
Mhm.
to me as a Canadian, it's like, wow, this is like a comedy version of what we've been watching in horror
Mhm.
the last y- y- I mean, you can go back, you can just keep going back and picking out reasons, but let's say since Trump became a serious candidate, that you're like, wait, what? They're not
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
gonna, oh my god, they're really gonna, wow, the grab him by the, that didn't kill him, huh?
Yep.
And so yeah, but as far as I'm concerned, I enjoyed it. I was it, I agree with you about area that didn't quite land, although I did laugh when she comes in later in the film. um and we'll talk about that more once we're in the spoiler zone. So yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
uh I was pretty good. Let's take a quick look and see if the
Yeah.
chat, before we
Some.
move into the zone. Let's see if the chat has anything they're saying before we jump forward. Um, you know
Yeah. A
what?
lot of good comments.
I wouldn't mind seeing who liked it, who didn't. Um well, Walt, your reference to Lawrence's character, we're going to come back to that. Oh, we keep getting it. Every now and then now, Jim, we must be doing something right, because every now and
Yeah.
then we're getting junk, like just junk
Yeah.
spam comments. I feel like we've
Trolley.
accomplished something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
bawdy kind of stuff.
Shashank says for him, felt the film covered way too many issues, and as a result, I found its exploration of the issues a tad bit superficial. He did have a good time watching it, though. Um, oh, Katie Fowler says, okay, Walt's felt Strangelove was more focused. Uh, Katie Fowler, glad I pulled myself away from the John Reyes Twitter storm to watch this film. I still haven't done it, but all I can think is your project shovel ready? Maybe the Minister of Economic Development and Jobs has make you breakfast. um, where are we here? Back and forth, Walt. Oh, we got the upside down.
Yeah, hey, woo.
Okay. Richard L. also quite enjoyed it. All right. With that, let's move forward, folks. Out of the into. Is it that time yet?
Oh, spoiler zone? Sure, yeah. Let's do it.
The spoiler zone.
There we go. Special effects.
Only the best here.
Welcome to the world of Foley artists, or I don't know, whoever does that.
A guy can run a dial thingy. Audio
Yeah.
engineering at its best on a
There you go.
budget. All right. Yeah, so we're in the spoiler zone. So let's move forward to craft. You know what? I'll go with this one if that's cool with you, Jim. Start us off. Yeah, you know what? I mean, it's always tough. Like Ariana Grande, like there was an example of, you know, was it her? Was it or was it just never gonna land? Um, that would be at the beginning, the 1 week moment. You know what? It's like did she just need, or did McKay need to pull it out of her? You know, just a little more ridiculous, a little more extreme version of a pop star, of a rich, disconnected pop star. Otherwise, yeah, I was fine with everyone. I thought everyone did fine. What little time everyone had, because again, it's very episodic. It's here, you're going to do this, and then we're going to see you in an hour. Walt made a comment about Lawrence's character being marginalized and ignored. Well, I think that was like literally cooked into the story. I enjoyed her every time she was on screen. I was okay with her being the way she was. I would be too. It's like one of those, really? Am I the only one on crazy pills here? As she sees her mentor get totally co-opted, etc. So I thought her performance was great. This isn't, I think one of the best satirical movies of the last decade is The Death of Stalin. And this isn't that. Not in the production design, not in the performances, not in the not in the just in a way the scope of the thing. It isn't that. But it's pretty good. And because the performances are there. You know what? No one seems like they're being lazy. They again, and that's, I'm probably being a little unfair to her. That's the only one where I could kind of go, oh, could we have just gotten a little more ridiculous, a little bigger, a little broader? Yeah, this needs broad and ridiculous. You know what? You can't have. There's Peter Sellers. It's pretty broad and it works. Anyway,
yes, yeah.
You know what? Everything else it's because of the way, I'm thinking of The Big Short. We don't talk about the production design in that. We don't talk about the great costumes. It's because we're not supposed to. It's very much this is our life now. Don't be distracted by it. The only time, and I did enjoy The ones where they really got to kind of exercise their production design muscles and some of the VFX and that was all the space stuff and just how ridiculous it all looked, how Armageddon it looked, which I think was
Yeah.
totally on purpose. The even when they go, we're in the spoiler zone now, folks. When the lucky few that get onto the ship, that of course they have, that somehow makes it through, though the robots
Lucky.
can't. Yeah, the lucky
Yeah.
ship. I thought that looked that kind of sci-fi, super cool kind of whoa, and it's all not working. It's all
Yeah.
a mess,
Mhm.
and I enjoyed that. Yeah, I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, there's a few other points. In terms of broadness and that kind of thing, there's a shot of Meryl Streep as President Orlean, and she's smoking a cigarette, and behind her there's a big flammable sign. Somebody on Twitter pointed, so it had that set against a
A
picture
great
of Mike.
fireworks moment.
There's a picture of Mike Pence at some sort of industrial, I don't know,
Oh,
facility, and it literally says, "Do not touch. This is going into space." And he literally has both his hands on the thing.
I think
So
that
they
even
sort of,
became a story.
yeah,
Didn't it
yeah.
might have even
I
became a story. Anyway, continue.
couple
Sorry.
couple years back. So
Yeah.
I mean that kind of thing in terms of the subtlety. I mean, how can you be subtle with something like that? But in terms of craft, I thought the performance was really really good. Timothy Chalamet comes in the last sort of chunk of the movie, the last third perhaps, and I sort of actually, whenever he comes on screen, I'm kind of like, ugh. And then he always sort of wins me over. There's a line, and it's almost like he travels with his own screenwriter, because there's a line when he's sitting in the back seat of the car on, I guess, the last day of the life of the world.
Yeah.
He's sitting in the back seat of the car, and Dr. Mindy, Leo, and Jennifer as Kate
Ms.
are
Dibiasky.
sitting in the front, and he says, "Dr. Mindy, do you mind if I get vulnerable in your car for a moment?" And that it was just like, it's like it's not that it's unlike it's written before and he happens to be the one given the line. It's like it's written for him. So little touches like that, I sort of enjoyed that moment. But yeah, I mean, Mark Rylance again comes and hits it out of the park as the kind of guy who's detached and not, staring to the middle distance with his
Yeah.
fake hair and his fake teeth. I thought he was super great and creepy and not unlike certain tech guys these days. I thought Kate was almost unrecognizable. Like, it did take me. I sort of said, "Who's
Hmm.
that?" And my wife said, "Well, duh, it's Kate Blanchett." And I went, "Oh yeah, I guess it is." But she did, aside from her ridiculous cheekbones, she did look a little bit different.
Yeah.
Um, but most of all, I
Damn her
like.
and her cheekbones.
Yeah, exactly. I just like the sense of energy, like coming in. You had even the credits were sort of big and multicolored, and the colors of the thing. You came in, and there's this big blue telescope, and that shown to great effect. Just part of the opening sequence when Kate Dibiasky discovers the comet, and before they realize, and that whole sequence of them sort of, yay, oh wait a sec, that whole arc, that
Yeah.
mini arc to start off the movie was kind of neat, because it's like, yeah, we got a new one, and then they realize it's headed straight for them. He's like, yeah, let's just call it a day. And that's when Leo starts to look like he's gonna have a stroke or heart attack or something like that. So I thought, and that established a nice sense of tension almost immediately.
No.
But it was able to, sort of counterintuitively, it was able to have a good sense of energy for kind of a downer subject at the darkest point of the year in the middle of a crap pandemic. So it sort of handled some of these things fairly well, I think. But
And,
I was in it to the end,
yeah.
and
And,
yeah, I enjoyed it.
let's you mentioned Chalamet's character,
Mhm.
and I do want to, the one character that wasn't played broadly. Like, you could have dropped that character in a different movie in a more realistic, naturalistic flick, and it would have worked. He would have
Hmm.
worked. Uh, and so, notwithstanding all my talk about Broad, that they didn't go broad with him,
Hmm.
and
That's a good
that he
point.
was an evangelical, that he was, and that he played it subtly enough that you never once, he never played it like with a bit of a smirk.
Nope.
He, at times you found him ridiculous, but only because of his youth.
Hmm.
And yeah, even his face, it's like, he was like, "Don't tell my friends," which is
Yeah,
totally what you'd buy. Like, yeah, I think we do need a special shout out for that one character and the way he's played. Uh,
that's a good
Dr.
point. Yeah.
Mindy's family also. Melanie Linsky deserves another shout out. There's that great confrontation moment between her and what's her name?
Bree.
Kate. Thank you, Bree. Where it's like, all right, then here's his heart pills, and here's this, and she's
Yes.
just, and it's just what a great moment of like it was a great moment, a human moment. And yeah, she was also not played broadly. His children weren't played broadly, so
Nope.
they did. And I like that. I respect that the ones that get some of the more powerful you were, the more you got to. It never punches down.
Hmm.
It's or I shouldn't say. Well, yeah, I'm going to say for now, never. You know what? Or close to never punches down. It powerful people get to look stupid. Um,
Hmm.
but the lower you are on the totem pole, and the more if they got time, they're treated with respect. I felt when the douchebag, I felt Dibiasky's, you know, when the douchebag,
Ex-husband or
yeah,
ex-boyfriend.
ex-boyfriend, drops, I slept with her for
Yeah.
clicks, you know, that crazy chick, which
Yeah.
I felt for her. So yeah, there were some real human moments in what's otherwise a pretty broad thing. Or
Yeah, and further to that, all those elements that you're talking about, the the Mindy family and the Timothy Chalamet character, they all come together in that dining scene. It's the
Yep.
sort of the literal Last Supper, and they do a little bit of grace, and Timothy Chalamet,
Pulls it
it
together.
pulls it together, has a little prayer or a little
Yep.
grace, and the Oglethorpe character says, "Damn, you got some good church game there, son," or whatever he
Yeah,
says.
yeah, church
And
game,
it
I
was
believe,
a
or
really it was a really nice, poignant moment for the end of the movie.
yeah,
And you're bringing all those elements together. In
yeah,
terms of punching down, it doesn't really. I mean, it's sort of there's a couple crowd shots where they're gathered outside the White House
hillbillies.
or what, and they look up and they say, "Wait, there is the comet. It's coming straight for us after all."
You're
And they start telling
liars.
that's I mean, but that's hardly anything.
Yeah.
That was just about the only time they showed any of them as
Yeah.
individuals, I think.
Okay.
But
Well,
yeah,
let's
yeah,
on that note, let's get into the story.
sure.
Do you know what? Why don't you take us why don't you start it off, Jim?
Sure.
Look
Well,
at that.
again, it's just sort of it was juggling a lot of different balls there. There's a lot going on. I think again, I thought it handled things fairly well. Like I going into it, I said to my she doesn't always watch the movies that we review. She's like, okay, you can watch that on your own, or I'll watch that with you. So we watched it together. But I thought, maybe am I ready for this? Is it going to be like is it going to be a total downer, or it's super controversial or whatever? So leading into it, I was actually surprised at how it sort of started, and it didn't really for me it didn't slow down at all. Again, I think it's over 2 hour, like almost a 2.5 hour movie. But I thought it handled all the elements of the story well. Even though you know where it's going, it's kind of a depressing subject. But they I guess what they did is they took the the route of maybe see how the characters reacted to it. So
Yeah.
that that was sort of an interesting approach, rather than just a and then in terms of the events. But and there was so much time and so much happened to them that when they were first arrested, they were all terrified about it, or when they were first sort of confronted by the authorities. And by the end,
It's
when they arrested
just take
them
me
to
off the grid.
yeah,
Good
when
stuff
they
to do.
arrested them to apologize to them, uh, you know, Kate Dibiasky is jogging across the campus for some exercise, and
Yeah.
a blind guy throws down his cane, and
Yeah.
he says
Really, you're
FBI, and he goes,
blind? You could have
"Really?
arrested.
You couldn't just come to my house?" And sort of just like fuck off, and just the sort of the
Yeah.
disdain she has for them. So that's it. So you see sort of what they, uh how they change over where at first they're like, and then they're like all kind of like, been here, done that. So
Yeah.
there is some sort of change that way. Um, the only thing that sort of, or one of the things that caught me by surprise, there's a couple things, is at the very end when it's nearing the final day. It's Kate and Leo and Timothy Chalamet as Yule, and they're all going to Dr. Mindy's house to apologize to his wife, have a final dinner together. I sort of didn't realize until, well, it took me a few minutes to realize that that was the day of the approach of the comet. So they sort of, the time aspect was a little bit jumpy. Like I would have liked to have sort of known that, hey, the roads are empty, they say, there's nobody on the highways. I
Yeah.
guess that was a clue, but it sort of, the way
Maybe
they
even just
portray
like a counter or something to kind of keep
just
us
something
in
little.
time place. Yeah.
Yeah, because it sort of
How
jumped.
closer we're getting to, I'm
Yeah,
thinking of Deep Impact had
yeah,
that.
yeah.
You
Because
were
there was a bit
always
of a
kind of
three
how
week,
closer it gets.
yeah, there's about a 3 week jump there. And then at the very end, there's sort of the almost post credit scene. And for those who don't know, and I didn't realize, there is an actual post credit scene at the very end. And there's even the credits end, and then there's like about 10 seconds where there's nothing,
Yeah.
and then there's a scene. So you got to keep watching for that. I mean, it's a minor kind of thing, but the one where they show what happened to everyone that got on the spaceship, tonally, I thought that was a little bit silly.
As
It sort of
Richard
didn't fit
says,
in
watch out for the Bronterocs.
the Bronteroc. And then,
Yeah.
and when the president asks Mark Rylance as Peter, the tech giant,
Yeah.
he says, "How do I die?" He goes, "Oh, you're killed by something called a Bronteroc.
Bronteroc.
We're not sure what that is yet, but I guess we'll
Yeah.
find out." And then, bam, she's killed by a dinosaur 21,000 years in the future, or some sort of dinosaur-like creature. That was a bit silly, but
Well, and also I think
other than that,
thematically there was like a bit of a, you know what, these guys aren't that good. They're not seeing the
yeah.
future.
Mhm.
They're again, this is all the same technology. They say they can predict all these things, and it's almost like, was it any better than climatology or human? It's like, we know you're gonna break up. Well, much like the Friends did, because they stopped talking to each other. Like
Yeah.
this isn't that hard to figure out. Most relationships don't work out. Shock of
Mhm.
shocks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did. What about one of the great running gags was Dibiasky's kind of, he charged us for the snacks. Like
Yes.
even
Yeah.
right at
Yeah.
the end, it's all good. And I've gone through it in my mind, and you're like, where it's coming, but you're like, kind of, well, maybe it's something, but no, she's going to be talking about the snacks and getting charged for this. He works in the White House. He's a
Yeah.
general. He charged us for the snacks. Like, this is now the great mystery of her life. If she could just solve this, she could go to her demise or inevitable demise, with some comfort, with some
Yeah.
closure.
Yeah. 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 And the best one is when they cut to the middle of a conversation, and you think she's talking about something else, and she said, "I just can't figure it out.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
must make a good salary. Why would he charge us?"
Yeah.
It's sort of a,
You
that was
know,
and good
mhm,
for her character too.
yeah.
Like it was
Oh
a
yeah.
nice illustration of the kind of things that
Yeah.
she sort of gets obsessed about.
Well, and well, at the same time, she never bites on the Jonah Hill's character's constantly being a douchebag to her, like really kind of, do you want to come? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Throws, no,
Fist
because
bump.
he's just being a nasty little piece of work. And in the end,
Yeah.
she's, you're an asshole. Like I don't think she ever says that, but you can,
No.
she never really bites. She never gets that one.
Yeah.
She doesn't get one. She's too busy worried, wondering why that general charged her for the snacks. He charged us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, no, was there any part, like, I mean, the plot's pretty straightforward and it's not really a plot driven movie. Comets coming. Uh, I mean, there's a bit of I don't think it's a twist so much as a turn, like a good plot turn. It's like, hey, we'll redirect this thing, like in the way they use the political cycle, the standard Washington political cycle, to kind of, hey, we're all of a sudden we're taking this seriously because we got other problems, we need to focus on this thing. But the hey, there's material on there, and some corporate asshole, the Mark Rylance, the Elon Musk of the piece, saying, let me take care of this because we
Yeah.
can make
Yeah.
some money. Um, you know, uh, uh, yeah, I think this was, otherwise it's still just some episodes as we get closer to the end, and we all know what the end is. It doesn't hide it. It's not this is not Armageddon or Deep Impact. It's like, no, we're going to actually watch this as it would actually play out. Nobody changes that much because, yeah, that doesn't happen in real life. If we change, it's subtle and over decades. You know, yeah, there's a lot of inertia in our personalities and in our behaviors,
Yeah.
even, yeah, ding dongs who get hit on by the pretty girl for a while and kind of go, it's like, oh yeah, this isn't where I belong. Maybe I hope my wife takes me back,
Yeah.
and even
Yeah.
her on the end is like, yeah, sure. What the hell? Come on in, like,
Yeah.
other gentlemen callers. No, you'll
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
10 years ago, I might have dealt with it differently. Yeah, I think as far as the story goes, it does its job. Like, I mean, what are we expecting? It is
Yeah.
a end of existence, notwithstanding one of the other post credit scenes. It is an end of existence,
And I tell
movie.
you,
And so it's
as
all about how these different people manage that end, how they went into it, and how they, and there's some people it's like, screw it, we'll hold hands, and, you know, faith or no faith, a little prayer,
yeah.
just
Yeah.
a little human connection and comfort. And then the ones that are like, no, we can get away because I'm rich and powerful. Oh, wait, the Bronterox.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's I sort of, in terms of end of the world movies, I sort of wish we had this when I was growing up in the '80s instead of Threads or any of
Mm.
those horrific nuclear nuclear war movies that sort of made me put my covers over my head at night. But you know, I'm gonna sleep in the basement, Mom. That kind of thing. So yeah, no, there's some pretty depressing shows of this nature, not of this delivery, but of this nature back in the day. And yeah, this one was a little easier to take, I think, but still,
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately kind of horrific. But it had a surprising approach. That's for sure.
Well, and one of the things I liked about it, as far as the story goes, it, well, maybe it was almost getting into meaning. So,
Mhm.
but it,
There's some.
oh yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No,
I was
you
just gonna
go.
say there, if we before we move on to meeting, there's some good comments in the chat there.
Yeah, no. I want to get to that. I want to kind of wrap up my comment about story, and maybe it's, you know what? I'll hold on to it until we get into meaning.
Sure.
But yeah, here's what I got to say. its satire isn't biting. Um, it is, even to the powerful, it's not, it punches up, but it's not cruel either. I don't, even the chief of staff, president's son, kind of gets a little bit of a, there's some sympathy. There's sympathy for some of these devils. And I
Mhm.
kind of like that gentleness of touch. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
you know so yeah, you are right, we do have some great comments in the chat. Let's very active chat. Okay, actually it's great that I see this. Okay, Walt is says with different intent, but he's talking about the same thing. Walt says, unlike Strangelove, say, this tried to mix hard satire with some sentimentality, and not sure that aspect worked. And yeah, I think and maybe that's part of the divide here for a lot of people on this film. I was certainly fine with a little bit of sentimentality, a little sugar to help the bitter go down.
Mhm.
Um, the apparently Shashank is on winter break, and he's on winter break till February 1st. So good to see him here while he's on break. Thanks, man. Vlad is he does have a nice, and most of the time, but not always, you could hear the high cost talents dialogue. Yes, you could. It's almost like, hey, we should be able to hear everything. Um, this film was first inspired by global warming, but overall, it seemed more about COVID response, which is far more immediately evident. Okay, so I looked into the development of this picture. It was always um, it was and still is, from the filmmaker and the writer's perspective, the McKay and Sirota's perspective, about global warming and how this is something we're forever being. But yeah, given that it's uh, not 2019, it was the deal was done. Paramount sold this to Netflix. Uh, you know what? Development, obviously, development had pretty much finished, and they started adding talent. It was going to be shot in March, spring of 2020. COVID, of course, had that impact. You move to fall of 2020, and it doesn't get finished till February of 2021. So you can certainly see COVID, and it brings an extra layer of an extra hit to how the scientists, their opinions are dismissed by people who know nothing of what they're talking about. The anesthesiologist.
Yes, yeah.
She's an anesthesiologist. Why are we listening to her? Um, which, you could almost say, well, there's Fauci and there's Peter Navarro, an economist who's, suddenly an epidemiologist. But I think, I wonder if that Walt, and for you, Rich, Rich in the comments, of course, Shank, Katie, everybody, Dan, the Upside Dan, I wonder if some of that is how we're looking at the story, because COVID is so recent. We almost can't help ourselves but see this more as a parable about COVID and what we do. But anyway, so there, the Walt says, or Shashank says, film has split people totally. I've seen people singing praises of the film on social media and people just not getting what it's about. Involves strong responses from either side, including people, like I say, well, I agree with all the things they're saying. They didn't do it right. It was shrill. It was this. It's like, oh my God, tough crowd.
Yeah.
Richard L. says, for a comet that landed in the Pacific, a shockwave crossing land to destroy a house in Michigan is surprising. More likely, they would have died when the atmosphere became dense and it dropped to minus 100. So there we go. Richard L., political scientist and climatologist, has chimed in on.
And Debbie Downer. Just kidding.
Shashank Vachari. An interesting point is that Pete correctly
Yeah.
predicts that Jamie will
The
have her death.
president.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, will have her death. Yeah, it's however, Dr. Mindy says that he will die alone. He doesn't. And that's I think it's almost like Shashank, they didn't want to let go of the Bronterock joke. They really wanted the
Yeah.
Bronterock joke, so they decided, yeah, because you're right, Mindy doesn't die alone. And that this is what's so frustrating. It's almost they had to have the rocket ship and they wanted to end on that joke, but otherwise it's kind of counter to the robots didn't work. All their technology didn't work because this is what happens when somebody who got good at a phone, or let's say thinks he's a car manufacturer, is also now a space guy. And why is all the really expensive stuff not go on Falcon 9 rockets? Oh right, because it's really expensive and they want to make sure it actually gets where they want it to go. Anyway, where was okay. However, Dr. Mindy's final moments are with his family. Shashank, good point, thought after the movie, but forgot it since. Sort of like his hero moment overcoming his fate.
Yeah, I think with the Mark Rylance character, when he said he was going to die alone, I don't know if he was being truthful or he was just being an asshole and trying to bring Dr. Mindy down, because he was sort of like, because Mindy had the audacity to ask him some actual questions.
Yeah.
So
Well, but I think that's if he was that, would these other things play out? Like, I mean, it's a plot inconsistency. If they gave up the Bronterock joke, it works. You know what? Yeah. And again, because they aren't that good at this shit. Like, I mean, everything he did kind of made sure, like, his change. This is wow, this could really work out. Like a lot of movies that end on a down note, there's wow, this could all work out. Oh, wait, there's this dipshit,
Yeah.
What else? The Day After, another classic. Yes. Although, yeah, I think about that British Threads. It's like, oh, so creepy. Jeez. Just what a fucking bummer. Vlad, as to crowd response, in an era when students have to be warned about disturbing realities of history, perhaps not surprising, some are too sensitive to take the acidity of some of the satire. Okay, I think this is also... Oh, Richard also does have a geography degree. There we go. Yeah. Overeducated jerk. Okay. We caught up with the chat. Always great to catch up with chat. Yeah. Love an active chat. Let's move forward though, Jim. Let's sure. Actually, before we move forward, why don't we take a moment to perhaps, oh, not that, beg for a like. Let's not forget to subscribe. And last, certainly not least, Riggy ding that bell.
There you
go. Fantastic. All right. Yes, Jim, let's get into the meaning of the piece. Boy, this will be hard to unpack. So subtle.
Yeah.
Why don't Jim? Why don't you go first?
Sure. I just think some of it was a little bit of a caution on our over reliance on the current classes. I sort of started to make a chart after the movie. I had it divided up into tech, money, and politics, and I ultimately didn't. I actually copied the number down. They showed it a 1-800 number on the screen if you're having trouble dealing with the comment. I was going to call it to see if it's an actual sort of a joke line that's activated. But anyway, so just the sort of our reliance and the trends of our current reliance on the tech world the tech sector,
Hmm.
and the sort of the political sector, which was always a little bit more reliable in the past, although not mistake free and not without ulterior motives. But it seems even flakier these days. And then just that sort of that lure of money always corrupting everything. I think those are sort of three elements that you know you see an obvious threat. What could possibly go wrong? Everyone's going to be on their best behavior, no? And I
Yeah.
think this was sort of a little bit of a warning about situations like that.
Well,
Like,
even like a shot to the previous disaster movies like Armageddon and
yeah,
Deep
yeah,
Impact. Our better natures will come out. It's like, what?
yes,
Well, Timothy
yeah, yeah.
Chalamet's character's better nature came out. you know,
Well, we haven't talked about Ron Perlman as the sort of crazy military guy who starts, thanking
to
all the
all
white
my white
people, and
people. And then,
that was a bit broad, but and also maybe the oh, didn't he say something about the
you literally have,
yeah,
Jim, before let's on the broadness. There is nothing
yeah,
broad about it. You could go further
yeah,
because right
yeah,
now
that's
in
true.
some American states, they're saying you've got to be impartial about the Nazis. Make
Yes,
sure
yeah,
you
yeah.
they're both siding the Nazis.
Hmm.
like,
Yeah,
so yeah, he's not too broad. In a way,
yeah,
can you something you said before, how boy, there's no level. Like there's
yeah.
literally debating. Well, you got to be impartial. It's
Mhm.
the fucking Nazis. Anyway,
Yep.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah. No, 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 no. That's a fair point. But yeah, no, the Ron Perlman character was something else anyway. But he there's a lot of things he was saying as he was flying on his mission there.
Yeah.
But I
The
don't
to the
necessarily.
why don't you Indians here and here, both of you, you know.
Why didn't you ever team up? I just like,
I just thought that'd be great. It's like,
oh my
and
gosh.
you're kind of accept that this
Yeah.
guy is real, you know.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, but and he must have had a great time playing it because he's not that kind of guy at all.
No,
He's sort of a big old lefty, and well, as left as you get down there. But yeah, he's definitely not a Republican type. But
not at all.
yeah, so in terms of meaning, just that our sort of reliance on things that are inherently corruptible, I think
Hmm.
that's sort of a bit of a caution. Is Jeremiad the right word? I didn't look it up before I started, but it's a little bit of a caution anyway, a cautionary tale
Yeah,
for this day and age.
yeah.
What did you think of the meeting?
You know what? Myself, Jim, we're no longer in quick review. We're deeply into discussing the
Oh
meeting.
yes,
Uh, I I wonder if it's not even it's not a cautionary tale.
oh you
It
don't think so? Yeah,
is a mostly kind of pointing out what's already going on. Like if you look at The Big Short, which is, I think one of my there's a few movies out there that I just keep rewatching, and The Big Short is one of them. Moneyball is another. But if you think of The Big Short, and if you look at this, I think Adam McKay comes from this. No, this is who we are. This is what we do. He's just
mm,
he's holding up a mirror. Uh, I think he is. If there's any in joke, it's a direct response to Armageddon and Deep Impact and a million other almost Independence Day, some of these big disaster movies where it's yeah, that's not how we'd play it. We'd do something stupid like this. It's also I think, and then maybe now here's where I'm probably reading a little too much into it, but I think we can use it also as a no, this is how we deal with disasters because this is what we've just done. Um, it's not contagion. It's not outbreak. It's none of
yeah,
these things. No, we turn it into a cluster all on our own.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Go
there's
ahead.
almost a historical, and it was Marx. I was like,
Uh-oh.
who said? And I'm like, I'll be damned. Who was Marx? Anyways, here's the full quote. Hegel remarks somewhere that all great world history, facts, and personages appear, so to speak, twice. He forgot to add the first time as tragedy, the second time as farce. And I think what it kind of points, what this film is pointing out, is that we're firmly in the farce mode. It, you know, if the United States slip into fascism and anti I mean it's always struggled with strains of anti-intellectualism and anti-science, but if the trajectory continues and it really does fall into a kind of quasi-fascist state, and I don't think it's Gilead. I think it's more of just ridiculous nonsense. It's
Idiocracy.
yeah, it's idiocracy. It's the southern states killing themselves, saying, "Don't give me the life-saving drug because it's a scam. Look down." And other ding dongs, which is one of my favorite bits in the film, and we only saw it briefly, but I've interacted with these idiots. Is the one is I think it was Chris Evans playing it. That was his
Oh
cameo
yeah.
with the
Yeah, that's right.
badge,
Yeah.
the don't look up and down. I haven't seen that. Yes, we need to. We're divided. It's like one of the critics that I admire. Again, she's talking. We're so divided right now. It's like, well, yeah, because half is you do not have dialogue with a racist. You say, stop the racist shit, and then we can talk. But
Yeah.
if you're going to be all about the Nazis, there's not a lot to talk about. There is no dialogue.
Mhm.
There's no compromise um, on some of this stuff. These facts, these fundamental facts. Look, it's right there. Where's the middle? What's the middle ground? That's ridiculous. And I think that it is. If the United States is playing that out, it's playing it out as a sad farce. And what I think is the point of this movie, it's almost like it was written for everyone who kind of goes, yeah, we're not going to change, but at least we can have fun watching the of again, like I said, I think this, especially this satire, is not to change anyone's mind. It's not actually making a
Mhm.
point, like that we can act on. It's more just saying to the people who have watched what's going on and gone, yeah, it is as ridiculous as you think. It's as crazy. It's
Yeah.
whether it be Dibiasky just kind of screaming at people, why aren't you crying? That's a reasonable response right now. This is awful. Um, and then, media going, well, isn't it? You're not answering the question, about how it's named after her, right? And it's like, that has nothing to do with anything. I, yeah, I think that's where this film works best. Is it's not trying to change anyone's mind. It's mostly for people who are accepting of its general assumptions about where the world's at, about climate change, about COVID-19, about all this stuff, and kind of going, yeah, I don't think you're crazy either. This is all
Yeah.
stupid. This is all ridiculous. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
none of these
Well, in
rich,
ter-
powerful people are on your side. You know,
Yeah, in terms of being a little bit more precise about saying cautionary tale, I should amend that it's a cautionary tale for people who think we're in good hands. Like it's more
oh
the thought that like, oh, this will take care of itself. We've
yeah,
got the
no, no, no,
professionals
no,
in place. Not necessarily the case. So it's just for anybody who's
yeah,
apt to just sort of brush it aside and say, ah, they got this. NASA has
yeah.
this. I
They
don't know if that's
don't.
necessarily the case. No,
They
no.
don't.
So
Or let's say it. I think there's whether it's intentional or not. Um, and that there's a tough one there. Is it's we are in a time where certain problems are technical. Are, I'm not talking about Apple, Elon Musk, etc., because they're a different kind of hustler, like any of these tech bro billionaires.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that a lot of these problems are technocratic in nature. You know, it's you hire the expert, they go fix it. Just as I don't get a visionary to deal with my plumbing, you know, you don't get a loudmouth demagogue when, you know, it's a medical issue. You go fucking go to a proper doctor. Don't shop around for the quack who will tell you whatever ding dong thing you want to hear. It's the same with this. It's like, yeah, you do go to those experts. Say, oh, okay, well, what do you need from us? And I think that is something that's really, it's always difficult to do because you're handing
Hmm.
yourself over to specialists, um,
Yeah.
some who are not very good at explaining what they're doing. Um,
Hmm.
but it's also just psychologically, or let's say it's not what we're set up to do as a species. You know, we're just our world has become so complex that
Hmm.
we have a hard time with that kind of thing. So I think that might be part of it. But I don't know if that's actually meaning or something we can learn from the piece that, you know, hey, at least it goes beyond the we're all
Yeah. Yeah.
here. Let's take a look at the let's take a look at the chat. Oh my
Sure.
goodness. It's just hopping,
Yeah.
hopping, hopping, hopping and popping, popping. Uh yeah, okay, what do we got? Okay, Shashank. The film seemed to take on how people are so willing to take sides about topics and issues they don't understand. Yes, we do.
Yep.
Uh, People are totally motivated by self-interest, and as a result, the truth suffers. Um, Vlad, remember someone in the Trump regime talked about cooperation with Germany during the D-Day ceremonies.
Unbelievable.
Well, and how was it? One of the Trump in-laws, she was yakking about uh, how the Germans know about when people take people off the streets or something. Something really kind of like, oh, you're no, you no, that's you've got that.
Yeah.
Yeah. um, Vlad, it's hard to laugh because politically the meteor is already striking and we don't know how bad things will get, but they will get worse. Yeah, that's, and I think that if you look at Sirota and McKay's comments, that's what they're saying is that you know, they, I guess in when they were researching as they dove deeper with climate scientists,
Oh yeah,
their
that's right. I read that
ever
too.
shock was how the scientists said, no, it's worse than you've ever seen on the media. That gets buried in story 4 and cut to nothing. Because again, I mean, well, we don't want to bum anyone out.
Hmm.
And apparently, there's a moment between McKay and Sirota where one's just like, well, it's like a comet is, you know, it's hurtling towards the Earth, and we're like not doing anything about it. And that's the trigger of their story.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's happening. It's on its way, and we're like, well, you know, jobs,
Yeah.
shovel ready. All right, Shashank. One point I really appreciated about the film is that at the end there is no hope in the end. Yes, the film didn't seem like a plea for humanity to change, but much rather an acceptance of how the world is. I agree 100%, Shashank. That is one of the things
Yeah.
I like. Is
That's a good
without
one.
feeling, interestingly enough, without feeling pessimistic. You know, there's still a human, you know, the hope of the heart,
Hmm.
with Chalamet's little prayer at the end, and just the way everyone's kind of, yeah, we're effed, but you know, a moment of, yeah, and I can't articulate that any further than the hope of the heart.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, I'm not even 100% sure what I'm trying to say there.
Well, it's sort of a minute of the, a moment before the end of the better angels of our nature kind of idea, as much as, as much as it's worth at that point. But
yeah, no, I don't think it's that. It's mostly a not better angels. Yeah, I don't think he's appealing to that. It's strictly a yep, we made a total mess of this. Um, Forgive us. You know, which, just kind of the dumping it all there. Which are
mhm,
really kind of and again, back to the meaning of the piece, what I appreciate, even just allowing that the American evangelical community is actually, not as monolithic as we're presented in the media, but that this young man could have a sophisticated view of his faith, let's say, and that he can, it's almost because we always see the worst of the American Christian, always just
mhm.
terrible. And you know what? To kind of slice out a little bit of, you know, there is still something that can be something decent that can be pulled out of that. Is actually kind of it's refreshing. Is it gonna
Yeah,
make
that's a
me
good
a
point.
Christian? No. But it's still like, I mean, that character is one with at times the most dignity, even though he's so young and so ridiculous. Can
Yeah,
I be vulnerable? That's a great
it's such a
line,
great
Jim.
line. Yeah,
It is. It's a great line, and I will forever now. Any Timothy Chalamet, it's like, oh, I'm going to be looking at his entourage and say that's got to be his screenwriter, his personal dialogue
yeah,
writer,
exactly.
who he trusts, and he should, because,
Yes, yeah.
mwah. uh, um, Vlad65 says they should have ended the piece with "We'll Meet Again" by Vera Lynn. Um, all right, we're going over, folks, so we're gonna
Hmm.
jump out of the meeting, and
Sure.
Jim, I'm gonna throw the focus over to you and ask you to tell us about what's our next movie.
So this Sunday we're going to be looking at the Power of the Dog. Almost called it Year of the Dog. But Benedict Cumberbatch and Jane Campion's latest movie.
Yep.
Um, and that should be interesting. I've not seen it yet. And I made the mistake of watching the piano on the airplane to New Zealand, forgetting how erotic it was. So this is that's the last time I watched a Jane Campion movie. But anyway,
I don't think this gets that sexy.
no, no. I was using the pillow to shield the screen from my neighbors. But anyway, yeah, so Power of the Dog, and it looks like a good one and timely, and it's getting, I think it won some of those Silver Globes. What are they called? I forget last weekend. But anyhow, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
That thing that's still apparently on.
That you can't watch.
That you can't watch. Yeah, that's right, folks. We will be back. We will not be. We are moving our time, and we are, notwithstanding that we're already 7 and counting minutes over. We're gonna give it our damnedest shot to. We're gonna start at 9:45 on Sunday, and we're gonna stick to an hour. Let's say
Ish.
an hour. Yeah, an hour. Much like we've actually been pretty good at sticking to 2 hours, we're going to stick to an hour. And this is our first run at it. I think we've done pretty well. So we'll see you at 9:45 Central Standard Time. That's UTC -6 here on the YouTubes. And yeah, so Jim, as we move into our own little end game, why don't you? Are
Sure.
we going to give Mr. McKay a pass or a fail?
Yeah, I will. I'll give him a pass. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Myself too. Yeah, I enjoyed this film. I found it darkly comforting. you know,
Yeah,
it
that's
is.
a good thing.
Yeah.
And I
And
actually I actually liked it more. I got more out of this than I did The Big Short, and that's not to denigrate Big Short, but I quite liked it.
Yeah. You know what? I think you've got to be interested in the underlying subject. And
Mm,
this, I would argue, the underlying subject of this film, and perfect time to move into final thoughts. The underlying
sure.
subject of this film, although it's about his the it's about climate change, but it's really about American culture. And you probably make, you know what, all Western countries are going through some of this, and some of it's just human demagoguery happens all over there. That's a human thing, not an American thing. But I do, and yeah, I really enjoy the Marx thing. This is the farce. If 30s Germany was the tragedy, 30s
Mm,
Germany was the setup for the tragedy of World War II, the and even the Cold War that came out of that. Uh, this is the farce of the United States at its, yeah, as it no longer is the imperial power it once was,
yeah,
and the way it's not managing that.
yeah.
All right, my one more time, folks. Just to again ask for a like, a subscription if you haven't already. Interestingly enough, the shorter our content, the more subscribers we get. I can't believe we picked up a subscriber from the minute and a half show we had
On Sunday,
on Sunday, where I was
sure.
basically apologizing, not apologizing. Mistakes
Curtis
are
Judd
made.
in the house.
Oh my goodness!
Curtis Judd.
There's a man who knows my pain.
There we go.
Good to see you, Curtis. Okay, and then of course, don't forget to ring that bell. All right, let's say goodbye to everyone in the chat. Um, you know what? Last in, first to get some love, some praise. Mr. Curtis Judd. Great to see you here, Curtis.
Yeah.
And hope you're having a great evening in Utah, just outside of Park City, and that the weather is treating you as well as it is treated us today. Like -3 at one time. I went out for a walk this
Yeah.
evening. It was quite lovely. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Curtis, I know you're paid. Yes, we do. And we will chat about that further later. Okay. Walt, Vlad65, thank you very much for coming out and bringing, as you always do, your A game.
Yes.
Um,
And
uh,
he's got a new video in the new year on his channel.
oh,
So
he
that's
does. Oh, for crying
yeah.
out loud. How did I miss that? I will check that. What's the movie about? What's the movie
Oh,
he's
what
looking
was
at?
it now? Oh, he's good. Oh, Four Feathers. Four
Four
Feathers. It
Feathers.
was about a week
Oh,
ago he
oh,
posted it. Yeah.
snap. Yes, I want
Yeah.
to see that. Okay. Shashank, our manage and I, on his Christmas break. Thank you so much for popping in, man, sharing your opinion on this film.
Yeah. Long
Richard
time.
L, thank you for coming in, putting up with my shit talking of you and your geography degree. If I could put it up on the screen, I would. My bad. Anyway, thanks for putting up with my nonsense, and thanks for coming.
Hey,
Same
Richard,
with you,
Katie.
KDL. Thank you very much for popping in. And let's not forget
Yes.
the upside down. The snack thing was the funniest thing. It was
Yeah.
pretty good. It was just a
Oh
great
yeah.
running, subtle, well, not subtle. It was a great bit.
Yeah.
But yes, the upside down. So good to see you.
Yes.
So good to see you here. I think I get everyone, Jim. I think so, eh?
Jelly Duck showed up at the
Oh,
start. I haven't
Ahmed,
heard him.
right? Yes,
Yeah.
Jelly Duck. Good seeing you here too. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you
Good
guys
crowd.
all very much. You're a wonderful crowd. You are. We are, Jim. We're the home of the best chat on the internet. These people
We're
make up.
blessed.
We are blessed. Um, Boy, it's that song in the movie. Alrighty, everybody. I think that's about it. Let's do a polite wave as we say Good night. And yeah, don't forget, everyone, next week we are going to be looking at The Power of the Dog. And that is on Netflix, playing on Netflix right now. So go check it out. And then join us on Sunday night at 9:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. UTC
Good night,
minus 6.
Mr. Bogdanovich.
Good night, Mr. Bogdanovich and Mr. Saget. Let's do
And Mr. Saget.
It's been a few.
And
Betty
Mr.
White.
Poitier.
And Betty
Oh my
White,
gosh.
for crying out loud.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Enough.
Enough of that.
Okay. All righty.